Okay, so there's one thing on everyone's mind right now, and that is when are things going to get back to normal? When are we going to be out of this lockdown situation? When are the numbers going to start turning around? When can we go back and resume our old lives? And I think that is not the right question to ask. And I don't mean to drop doom and gloom on anybody here, but the real question we need to be asking ourselves is, are we going to return back to normal? I should say, are we? Are we going to return back to normal? And by that, I mean, how do we return back to a normal life after coronavirus? And I don't think that fear is going to be the issue, and I don't think that people are going to refuse to go out. I think that people are itching to get out of their front doors and go do something. What I mean is, how do we return to a normal life economically? There are a lot of things that have happened here, and there were a lot of things, headwinds on our economy going into the coronavirus that are going to be exposed in a major way over the coming weeks. Let's start with the national debt. Okay, before the coronavirus hit, we had $23 trillion in debt. We were paying about $500 billion a year in interest on that debt, and we had just signed a new budget for the fiscal year, adding another $1 trillion to the debt. The stimulus bill adds another $2 trillion, and we know that there's going to be an economic downturn that's going to reduce tax revenues. So we're going to add potentially $4, maybe even $5 trillion of new debt this fiscal year. And the reason for that is because the $2 trillion stimulus bill, that was beginning. That was at the early stages of this crisis. We're going to be into May, we're going to be into June, and even if the coronavirus has passed, even if the lockdowns and the closures are over, that's when the economic impact of this thing is going to hit. Not everybody's going to be going back to work. Not every business is going to reopen. So we're going to be dealing with strong economic impacts from the coronavirus for a long time. What's that going to affect? One of the biggest areas you're going to see hit by the economic impacts of coronavirus is the housing market. The housing market is going to take a beating. Prices are going to fall drastically. And we know what happens to our economy when the whole housing market enters a significant downturn. The problem is, unlike 2008, the Federal Reserve and the federal government are both kind of out of bullets. We $23 trillion in debt. We're facing 26, 27, 28 trillion dollars in debt. What we're looking at realistically is an acceleration of our debt load by 4 or 5 years from what prior projections were. We're talking $800 billion, eventually $1 trillion a year, a lot sooner than we thought, just in interest payments alone. Okay, so the federal government isn't going to be able to come in here and spend trillions and trillions of dollars to try and prime the pump. They've already spent twice as much as they did during the 2008 crisis. If you think about the fact that we had a $785 billion TARP bailout. This time we went $2 trillion in stimulus. So that's a massive expenditure. The Federal Reserve is already printing money like crazy, sending money to try and add liquidity to the banking system. So the Federal Reserve doesn't have a lot of bullets left in its chamber. Okay, so the federal government is deeply in debt and is not going to be able to spend its way out of this. The Federal Reserve can't print its way out of this, but it's going to try. You can always count on the Federal Reserve and the federal government to try and spend and print their way out of this. It's not going to work this time. We're going to see a very strong inflationary environment, and I think a lot of people are going to be hurt by this. I also think that a lot of us are looking at the fact that we're working from home and the fact that our kids are being educated at home and saying, you know what, this isn't as terrible as I thought it would be. I think you're going to have a lot of corporations looking at the fact that they've been paying rent and retail space management and facilities costs and are suddenly saying, hey, this may not be necessary. I think that a lot of people who are working from home are going to stay there. Unfortunately, a lot of people who've lost work are also going to stay unemployed. And we've still got an oil war going on in the Middle East. So there are tons of negative economic issues coming our way when we clear the virus side of this and the sickness side of this. And we still don't have a handle on how long that's going to take. So I think that when we talk about when are we going to return to normal, when are things going to get back to the way they were, the bigger question, I think the more accurate question that we need to be asking ourselves is, will things get back to normal? Or what is the new normal going to look like? I think the new normal is going to look like a lowered standard of living. I think the new normal is going to look like, you're going to have single income households be the norm as opposed to dual income households. I think you're going to see a deflationary environment where prices are actually falling. And I think in the long run, it may actually, if we can purge the debt, if whether the federal government ends up defaulting on its debt, unable to meet its debt obligations in terms of its mandatory spending in Social Security, Medicare, and the national debt, or whether it just isn't able to continue maintaining this currency, certainly not the global reserve currency, I think that you're going to see significant changes in how we conduct commerce and what our standard of living looks like moving forward. There's too many things in the way. There's too many economic impacts from the coronavirus coming that I just don't feel like there's going to be a return to life as we knew it before coronavirus. So keep your eyes open, keep an eye on the news, stay home, stay safe, and please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel because there's more coming.